Find out why they've been first every time for over 70 years by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
WTIM. You're listening to the WTIM Pana Morning Show on your information station, and the show is sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, along with Pizza Man, Noren's Hardware, Bob Ridings Pana, and Okanee Chop Shop. I'm your host, Reed Kamai, and we do go to Pana proper now for this next guest, and that is the police chief of Pana, and I'm talking about Chief Daniel Bland. Chief Bland, thanks for coming on this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's good to have you on, and I think it's been a few months since you've been on the WTIM Pana Morning Show. So I'd love to start just by hearing from you on the numbers, the trends that are going on within the city of Pana as you've seen it.
Yes, it's been a few months since we've checked in. So just looking back over the last several months, naturally we keep a close eye on what's going on within our community, the needs. What's affecting the quality of life of our citizens, and I've noted the last several months we've seen a positive trend in crimes reported, complaints, issues, struggles, things we face, and usually that's during the end of the year. Every year we do an assessment of overall statistical numbers, review, and see kind of how things are going, the trends, problems to address. And so I thought it'd be good to just share some of the things we've discovered from the 2025 numbers and a comparable to some previous years to give the community and citizens kind of an idea of where we're headed.
Yeah. So, it sounds like you've got some of those numbers, and if you have them with you, I'd love to hear them.
Sure. So back in 2025, our numbers, and I can usually tell. A lot of people ask me how things are going, fairly often in a small community because, problems tend to arise quickly. They go right to the top quickly. If there's areas within the community where there's serious issues, additional complaints, problems, it gets to me quickly. And usually I can just share with, how often my phone's ringing, how many complaints are rolling in, where we're headed. And I've noticed this last year, and we've seen a trend over the last couple of years of our numbers and statistics going in the right direction. So overall in 2025, we looked at total calls for service coming in. There was 4,673. So we look at that comparable to it was very similar to last year, and last year was a good year. And I like to go back and kind of see the direction over 4 to 5, 7 year period, because looking back, I know and felt the struggle and pressure within the city at different times. For example, in 2017, our calls for service for that year was over 7,500. So you're looking at a 40% decrease in the calls for service. That means when something's happening, whether it's a minor issue of traffic crashes, but leading up to every type of call we deal with, from domestics, disputes, thefts, property crimes, custody disputes, alarms, loud music, ordinance complaints. Every time the phone rings, we make a call on it to track the issues we're facing. So when you see a 40% reduction over the last 6 to 8 years, that's a very positive trend that we're trying to sustain and keep going. But if you crunch down into the numbers, just to give you a few very important numbers that we like to monitor, like domestic disturbance complaints, which are very serious, dangerous to officers themselves. They were down about 20% from the previous year, which is a good number to show. Our property crimes, the two areas that we saw a slight increase, and it surprised me kind of initially, but once I dug into it, I could see where it came from. But our property crimes, which they all relate to problems within the community. If you're facing, if there's substance abuse problems, drugs, things of that nature, that's going to affect practically a large percentage of the calls we deal with, including especially property crimes, thefts, things of that nature. That was a 4% increase from last year, which last year's numbers are trending down as well. I got to digging into those and just looking back, and when you open up a large establishment like our Jack Flash business, our retail thefts are included in that category. So that was definitely an increase in retail theft numbers, which affects that statistic overall. But for the most part, the numbers are going in the right direction. We're happy with them. One question we're often asked is our mental health calls for service, things of that nature. And as everyone knows and sees, the struggles and trends seem to be going in the wrong direction. And we did see an uptick in those calls. I mean, this year it was about a 17 or about a 30% increase from last year, which we had a total of 67. Which is not an extreme number, but when you see an increase, that's something we're focusing on. But looking back and say, for example, 2017, when we compared those yearly numbers, there was over near 100 calls. So there's still a major reduction, which overall, when you look at your numbers, it gives you an overview of kind of where things are headed and how do you problem solve issues within a community with crime and all the factors. And when you see the services improving, trying to address the struggles that affects crime, that the entire picture, it plays a major factor in improving these numbers, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. So a lot to digest there, and I appreciate you sharing that. So, you mentioned the pretty significant drop between 2017 and the last year's numbers that you got. What do you attribute that to?
Well, several things. For one, the proactiveness of law enforcement. Our major responsibility is to target areas where there's problems, and if there's problems and issues and calls, and for the most part, I would direct it at a substance abuse issue. Looking back, there were less services provided to those struggling. You try to, because many of those in that struggle, that they're repeat offenders. They're in a cycle of addiction, struggle in and out of the court system. And when additional services are provided and you start pulling out people from that cycle and getting them help from their struggles, and they start recovering and making better choices and back to work and families restored, those are areas where you're going to see lesser problems. And actually, education is a factor that will improve those, reduce those numbers. Community involvement, sharing of information, relationship within the community. People feel comfortable with reporting day or night issues and struggles and concerns that will bring us into an area there might be a problem, or a neighborhood where they're facing issues. So there's several factors, but when those trends are going in that direction, that's what we want to sustain. For example, another number I was going to mention just when talking about the recovery, this last year we put through 49 people through our Safe Passage program. That's nearly one a week, to where back last year alone was 14. So people are reaching out more that are struggling and trying to find help and recover from situations, and it's not a surprise to anyone, but people that are in that struggle are often involved in crimes and domestics and custody disputes and calls for service that brings our attention to their area. So when you can reduce those numbers, your statistics are going to reduce as well.
Yeah, and we've had other law enforcement officials here on WTIM kind of talking about safe passage and what that's meant. And on one hand, just like you talked about, right, you have the numbers going down. I mean, on another hand, these are people obviously who are getting their lives back on track. I would imagine as a police chief, that's going to feel really good when you see what this actually really means to the people involved.
It does. It makes you step back, and for one, you don't have a lot of positive encounters within the profession, constantly just dealing with difficult circumstances. So when you have that individual and you see the recovery, and oftentimes that recovery leads to them sharing their testimony with others who are struggling, and then that leads to, it's a snowball effect where there's, it makes a major impact. In a small community, it doesn't take long for people to start seeing the positive changes, the additional resources available. They start sharing. And the entire region area of our community and surrounding communities has really bought into this. It plays a major factor in making a difference in your community.
No, that is big stuff indeed. Coming there from Pana Police Chief Daniel Bland. Let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll continue this discussion and maybe talk about some other things going on within the Pana Police Department that folks may want to know about. We'll get to that after this break, right here on the WTIM Pana Morning Show on your information station.
Your information station, WTIM.
If you're like most people, finding extra money for your savings just doesn't happen. Hi, this is Julie Sanchez at People's Bank and Trust, and we have the solution you've been looking for. Sign up for our Save by Spendings Roundup program, and we'll round up your purchases to the next dollar, then transfer that change to your savings account. It's as easy as shop, enjoy, and save. Start saving for the things you really want with our Save by Spending Roundup program. Call 888-PBT-1954 and let us put you and your savings first. People's Bank and Trust, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Dinner time just got easier with Pizza Man of Pana. Enjoy great food that includes amazing pizza, tasty pasta, salad bar, and chili. On Monday nights, enjoy the spaghetti special with garlic bread and a side salad for $8. On Tuesday nights, come in for the lasagna special with garlic bread and a side salad for $9. On Wednesday nights, grab yourself an individual pizza and side salad for $9. Pizza Man of Pana is proud to be serving Pana and the surrounding areas with great Italian food since 1985.
Noren's Hardware is a local family-owned store offering a wide selection of quality hardware supplies at competitive prices. Whether you need plumbing supplies or electrical supplies, you're sure to find what you need at Noren's Hardware Store, including ice melt, shovels, gloves, heat tape, pipe insulation, portable heaters, and propane to get ready for the winter months. Our staff is committed to providing outstanding customer service and is ready to assist you. Visit our store at 55 Main Street in Pana today.
Tornado baseball and softball, plus playoff games, are on New Country 104.1 this spring. Tune in or listen to the live audio stream of select baseball and softball games, plus playoffs of both teams. Brought to you by
the Taylorville Community Credit Union, the Christian County YMCA, Rural Rentals, and Scooters Coffee.
The purple and gold are coming your way. The Taylorville Tornadoes are going to do it today.
There's only one Central Illinois radio station that brings you the memories of the 60s and early 70s as you are cruising down the streets of your hometown. The dial position is 98.3 FM. The station is 98.3 WSVZ. From Macon to Vandalia and I-55 to I-57, cruising 98.3 plays the hits from early Elvis in the 60s to the British invasion of the Beatles, Herman's Hermits, and many more from the 1960s. Then we swing into the early half of the 1970s with artists like the Guess Who, the Doobie Brothers, and Elton John. Every song brings back something you remember about growing up. Set a button and crank up the station, playing good time rock and roll from the Tower of Power, cruising 98.3 WSVZ.
Your information station, WTIM.
And we're back on the WTIM Pana Morning Show on your information station. The show is sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, along with Pizza Man, Noren's Hardware, Bob Ridings Pana, and Okanee Chop Shop. I'm your host, Reed Kamai, and I continue my discussion with Pana Police Chief Daniel Bland, and we've been looking back at the stats from the previous year and some of the trends that have really stood out there. And Chief Bland, you and I were talking a little bit between the segments there about the role that a good amount of staffing has on being able to foster some of the positive changes that you have mentioned, and you've gone through some change in that sense as of late. And I'd love for you to share with our listeners about that.
Yes, definitely, for sure. No matter what's going on, you're going to get calls daily, and you're going to have to respond. And what affects that is your staffing and changeover. We recently had an experienced 28-year officer retire, Officer Richard Rare. He put in many years of service, saw many changes throughout our careers. I've worked closely with him. But in a small agency, if you're running 7 or 8 officers on patrol covering every shift 24/7, that affects the process. So just part of the navigation of an agency and running smoothly is transferring in, getting new candidates in. And that's where we've been in the process over the last couple of months of, lateral transfer interest, hiring new recruits just to maintain numbers. But I think it's important to recognize Officer Rare in his career. He worked hard. When we hired in together, it's interesting. We were handwriting our reports, and now leading up to the technology advancements and AI and involvement and the body cams, it's incredible the change. But he was instrumental in our agency, working in many areas. He was our master firearms instructor. He was part of many he worked for the drug task force for 5 years. But you take one seasoned officer off the staff, we got to step up, and we've had some good candidates interested. We've been blessed over the last several years of lateral transfers interested in coming and working in our agency to be a part of our law enforcement family to carry on. So, but there's always something going on to keep you busy, but calls keep rolling in. It's important to keep staff at a strong number.
Yeah, and you were talking about lateral transfers. So is this someone coming from like another police department over to Pena's?
Yes, there's a requirement if an officer he's been active within a law enforcement agency for a minimum amount of time, he can lateral transfer his time into an agency. That way he's already certified through the state of Illinois as far as his credentials. So that reduces overtime, reduces the length of time to train a new officer. So it's definitely a smoother transition. But yeah, and naturally, throughout the last several years, we've seen a reduction, across the nation of interest in our profession, which affects numbers. But it's nice to see people interested in moving into a small community working for our agency.
So yeah, now that's how you've been getting some of the extra help there. In what ways have you tried to turn to members of the community in Pana who may be interested in stepping up into that sort of role? What's that like?
Absolutely, it's nice that we do have some of about half our staff is raised locally. It's nice to have that local investment in the community, and then it's also nice to have that balance of outside, family members moving into our community to be a part of it. But it's the transition usually, sometimes it can be difficult with minimum staffing, but it looks like we've got 3 lateral transfer interests. The council's made approval to hire someone from that list, and so we're just transitioning to get that person into our agency.
Okay, so it sounds like you're making some progress there. And then you mentioned also, having a decent amount of staff who are from Pana. That must really serve. I would imagine it would serve the department really well to, have someone who knows the area, knows the people, probably even knows the issues as well as they're coming in.
It does. I'll speak for myself as far as just born and raised in this community. There's a connection. Naturally, most families, most people you're dealing with, that there can be a positive, response to that as far as just handling calls and dealing with situations. But it can also bring about, some difficult choices too, where you're dealing with people that, personally might be, so there's a balance between how that goes. But I've seen where it can be a major positive impact if you're from the community, but having that balance is vital as well.
I actually didn't think about that in terms of, what the connections can do as far as making things more difficult. Chief Bland, we've got about a minute left. Is there anything else you want to add about a turnover or trends or anything like that before we let you go?
No, we're just we're heading into springtime. As always, we look to try to find ways to educate the public, prevent crime. Naturally, with the times changing, longer daylight hours, we want our community and neighborhoods to be aware of what's going on, report suspicious activity. Where oftentimes we get a call the following day of something going on the previous night. We want to be called immediately to draw our patrol into that area, but we're looking to, head into the summertime where every agency sees an uptick in activity, and so we're looking to plan ahead for that. But overall, we're happy with the way things have gone, and we're going to continue to work hard to, just continue to find ways to improve quality of life for our citizens.
That's right. Police Chief Daniel Bland of Pena. Chief Bland, thanks for coming on.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Talk soon.
We'll talk.
Thanks.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. As American and Israeli airstrikes continue to pummel Iran, the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia's capital has been the target of an Iranian drone strike.